Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are at the end of the week, and what a busy week it was. So on Wednesday was Call to Earth Day with CNN. Many of you know it as the news network, and they were celebrating conservationists, explorers, and scientists who are documenting our changing planet and looking for solutions to some of the things we're facing right now, like climate change and our disappearing biodiversity. So on Wednesday, they were sharing stories on their website, sharing stories on the network. They do this all year long, but they have the big Call to Earth Day. They had it on December 4th. So we thought it'd be really cool to team up with them and to share some of those stories, connect with some of those scientists, those explorers, those conservationists, and give students a chance to meet them. So we shared some of the stories that they've shared throughout the year, but we've also been highlighting some of the groups and the organizations and the people that we work with through Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, because they all do incredible work. So this is actually the last day of events with this Call to Earth Week. Next week, we'll have a few more events with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants before we say goodbye for the Christmas holidays and the end of 2024. But once January comes, we'll get right back into action with tons of live events for your classrooms across North America and around the world. So it's always fun to take virtual field trips and explore places. And we're really lucky in that we get to work with one of the coolest organizations in all of the United Kingdom. We get to spend time with Eden Project. So Eden Project is in Cornwall in the UK, and it is home to the world's largest indoor rainforest. There are huge trees and cascading waterfalls. It is an amazing place to spend some time and have a little virtual field trip. So we're going to connect with Robbie and Tom very shortly. They're going to take us into the world of Eden, highlighting that rainforest biome, some plant adaptations, and then best of all, we'll get to play a little Kahoot and test our knowledge, and then we'll have some Q&A action. So it's going to be a very busy event. It's going to be jam-packed. We've got tons of classrooms with us today. So let's bring Robbie in, let's bring Tom in, and let's say hello. Hey, Robbie. Hey, Tom. How you doing today?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to see you.
All right. Well, it's great to see you, Robbie. I think Tom might be frozen backstage. I know Tom was having a little bit of technological issues today. So hopefully we'll see Tom shortly as well. But we have you, Robbie. I hear water in the background. I hear birds. You're in a pretty beautiful place.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're here in Cornwall in the UK. It is lovely and warm in our rainforest biome today, but actually very chilly outside. And we're all getting ready for Christmas here at Eden Project. So the rainforest biome, although being full of amazing, beautiful plants, it's also full of spectacular lights that come into action once it gets dark in a few hours' time.
All right. Very cool. And I bet you're ramping up for the Christmas season. I think you'll probably have lots of visitors over the Christmas holidays down there with you in Cornwall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're getting ready for that. We've got laser shows and all sorts of music events, ice rink, and all sorts of brilliant stuff for people to come and get involved in. Obviously, Father Christmas as well.
All right, very cool. And I think I see Tom backstage. Let's see if we, oh, no, he was there, but he just disappeared. So maybe we'll have Tom come and join us. I know Tom always gives a great intro to Eden and what it started. There's some really cool images of the early days of Eden. But maybe, Robbie, while we wait to see if Tom can pop back in backstage, maybe you can start to tell us a little bit about Eden and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having us as part of this Call to Earth Week. It's great to be here. The plan for our session today is we're going to tell you a little bit about Eden Project, the story of Eden, just so you know where we're coming from today. And then we're going to go on a bit of a tour around. We're going to look at the tropical rainforest. We're going to find out some plant examples which give us some good insight into why rainforests are important. We'll think a bit about how we can help rainforests. And we'll also look at some cool plant adaptations. And I'll just try and find any other interesting, weird and wonderful plants that I might be able to lay my eyes on as we go around. So Eden Project, because a lot of people don't know Eden Project. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that. But Eden Project is built in an old China clay quarry. Okay, so we used to mine China clay out of the ground here in this hole in the ground where I am today. and they used to extract that china, use to things, paper, loads of different things. But sadly, it came to the end of its useful life. There wasn't enough, it wasn't worth the money kind of carrying on with the quarrying here. So we eventually were just left with this big ugly hole in the ground. But there was a guy called Tim Smith, and he saw this ugly hole in the ground, and he thought, hey, I could use that to tell stories about plants and people. And so he began to build Eden Project's world famous biomes to tell stories about the environment, tell stories about why plants are so important and what we can all do to work together to look after them. So at the moment, I'm actually inside the rainforest biome, and you can see that biome behind me if I pan the camera around. So our rainforest biome is 55 meters tall. So it's pretty. Okay, so it's about 1.5 hectares. And there are plants in this rainforest biome. Now, those plants you'd naturally find from across the world's tropical rainforest. But what we've done is using our partner organizations, we've managed to grow those plants and then actually put them into our biome and allow them to flourish in here because it is warm and wet in here. We make sure it's a comfortable temperature for the tropical plants, and we water it heavily. So we provide the sorts of conditions that the plants need every day to be healthy and to look fabulous for our visitors and to tell our stories. Joe, does that help give a good insight to what Eden's all about?
I think so, absolutely. It doesn't look like Tom's been able to rejoin, so I think we're just going to have to dive right in and do an exploration and see what we see.
That's absolutely fine. The reason I'm nice is because to be here, we can see that lovely leafy plant there is actually turmeric. Okay, and we've got lemongrass behind me. We've got pepper. We've got a nutmeg tree. So really fragrant part of our biome. Now, I'm actually, if I turn around in a moment, and I'll flip my camera around in a moment so that you're able to see. But I'm actually, the other side of the pathway here is a really, really important plant. And it's an important plant because it is so valuable across the world. So what I'd like to do, if that's all right with you, Joe, is to give everyone a quick clue and see whether they're able to actually guess what plant I'm actually talking about. Okay? Actually, so if the answers come through in the chat.
Robbie, while I have you, if you do want to play a little bit of guessing, we do have Tom back. I see Tom backstage. I think we're in business. His connectivity looks a little bit better than it was before. He's just loading his PowerPoint. So I think with any luck, we'll be able to play those games with Tom shortly.
Okay.
I don't want to distract Tom. I want to say hi to Tom and let students see Tom, but I don't want to distract him while he's getting his PowerPoint ready. So I'm going to give him a second to do that. Now, while we're waiting for Tom's PowerPoint to load, Robbie, you mentioned biomes. You always talk about the rainforest biome, but you have another special biome there too, don't you?
Second, Joe, but I think you were going to be talking about our rainforest biome, our Mediterranean biome. So we certainly do. We have our tropical rainforest biome, and our smaller biome, our second biome, is known as the Mediterranean biome. So we have plants in there that ordinarily you'd find from South Africa, or they'd be from parts of South Australia, California. And that's a completely different environment than in here. In here, it's hot, wet, humid, perfect conditions for plants to grow like crazy. In the Mediterranean biome, although it can get hot in there, it's a lot drier. And the plants in that biome, they have adaptations that help them to deal with that environment. So if you look at the leaves of the plants in the Mediterranean biome, for example, you'd see that quite a lot of them are furry. So the leaves have some microscopic hairs on them to help reduce water loss. And in general, for example, the leaves in the Mediterranean biome, they're much smaller than the giant leaves that we tend to see here in the tropical rainforest biome.
All right, very cool. We have bought some good time because I see that Tom is loaded. Tom, can you go back? I want students to see the picture of the pit. Just what Eden looked like before it was transformed. If you're able to go back to that photo, Tom, let me bring that in. Let's wave to Tom. We've got Tom in with us now. Hi, Tom.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So just picture this, what this looked like, this China clay pit, and how it was converted into where Tom is standing right now. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. An incredible transformation. And really, that's what we're all about here at Eden, is we're about telling people that if we all pull together, if we all have share the same dreams and goals and work together, we can achieve incredible things. So taking a broken place, like in the picture you can see now, and using a lot of hard work and a lot of effort and raising huge amounts of money, turning that place into something like this, which is absolutely incredible transformation. So that's one of the things we're here to tell people about here at Eden, is and to inspire people with, is the positive action we can all take when we pull together.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, we were just about to play a guessing game, Tom, with our first plant. So
fantastic.
Yeah, let's jump into that and let's play a little game with that first plant.
Absolutely. Let me whiz through to my first clue. And here we go. So I think this is hopefully the one that we're expecting to see. So it says, who am I? One of the world's most widely consumed beverages and most traded commodities globally. So we were wondering, do you know which plant Robbie is standing near now? Which plant is widely consumed over the world and traded globally? So if you guys pop some answers in the chat to Joe, and hopefully he'll be able to feed those back to us.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. I want to put a couple classrooms on the spot as well. I'll turn on some microphones and maybe students can shout it out. So, I see some coming in the chat. I'm going to put on Mr. McGill's microphone. Grade 6, 7s. Do you know what the plant might be?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. What do you think? Coffee. Coffee. I'm getting coffee filling the chat, Tom.
Absolutely. Well done, everybody. Yeah, you are absolutely right. Robbie is currently standing by some of our coffee plants. And if we could make Robbie nice and big, Joe, thank you very much. Hopefully, he'll be able to show you some of those beautiful plants in our rainforest. And I think I'm going to be the one to talk to you about them. So, coffee. Now, as we said, coffee is traded around the world, but most of it, or the largest producer of coffee, is actually Brazil. Okay, so that's where a lot of the world's coffee comes from. In a moment, hopefully, Robbie will be able to show you some of the coffee cherries that are growing. There we go. I think he's got one in his hand now. Some of the coffee cherries that are growing on our plants. Now, they start off a green color, but once they ripen, they start to turn red. So there we go. Some green ones just coming into focus on the screen. But yeah, Robbie's got a red one in his hand. Once they are red, they're ready to be picked. And each of those coffee cherries contains just two little green slippery beans, which can be dried and roasted and turned into coffee. Now, coffee is an extremely valuable crop. As we've said, it's worth hundreds of billions of dollars every year. But traditionally, the people who grow the coffee farmers, don't get paid a particularly good wage for the product that they produce. So here at Eden, we often encourage people to think about the coffee that they're buying, to think carefully when they're going shopping and to choose wisely. And we encourage them to buy fair trade coffee, because fair trade not only ensures that coffee farmers get a better price for their product, but actually as part of that fair trade deal, they get money for their community as well. So it doesn't just benefit the coffee farmers, it benefits their whole community, and that money can be used to kind of raise the whole community and to bring everyone up with it. So a really important message that we often share with people here about being careful shoppers, and making sure you choose one product over another, and looking out for logos like this one, which I'm hoping Joe can just share on the screen, which is our fair trade logo. So that's the one that we encourage lots of our visitors and our young people to look for when they're buying things like coffee or chocolate as well, which we might get the chance to talk about a little bit later on. And the reason we say this is so important is because actually if our coffee farmers are living in poverty, then really they're not so concerned with protecting the rainforest. They've got other concerns and other worries. Whereas if they get paid a fairer amount for their product, they're more likely then to be able to look after the rainforest and care about this place, which is really important for us here at Eden, that we enable people to do that. Right. I think then I need to share another clue quickly, and it's going to be this one here. Which plant is Robbie going to talk to you about next, everybody? Who am I? The fastest growing land plant in the world. This giant grass has multiple uses, from building scaffolding to clothing. So again, let us know in the chat, let Joe know, and we'll see if we get it right. I can see some correct answers are coming through already, which is fantastic.
Yeah, let's put Mrs. Fisher's crew on the spot. What do you
Let's
think it is,
do it.
Mrs.
What is it? Bamboo!
Fantastic, guys. Well done. Robbie is absolutely standing by some of our bamboo in our rainforest. We've got lots of different sections of bamboo, but standing by some of it. And I think he's going to tell you all about bamboo quickly now. Over to you, Robbie.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yep. So this is our bamboo. I'm stood at the foot of our bamboo forest here. It's absolutely massive, giant bamboo. This stuff can grow up to 40 centimeters in a day, and it's relatively easy to grow. And as Tom was saying, it's super useful. It's a super versatile material. We can use it for flooring, furniture, construction, making paper, clothing. We can eat bamboo, and it also has lots of, well, we can eat bamboo shoots. We can't eat it when it's like this because we break our teeth. But it's also used to create and to make lots of medicines as well. And bamboo is quite a good example of a material, a timber material that can be produced sustainably because it's relatively fast growing. It's, well, very fast growing. It's easy to grow and it's very strong as well. So it's a really useful material. And what we can do, a bit like Tom was saying with when we're looking out for like the Fair Trade logo, is when it comes to products that are made from wood or timber or paper or card, we can look for the Forest Sustainability Council logo, which I do believe you will find in North America as well. And if it's got this stamped on it, if a product that comes from forest has got that stamped on it, then it knows that that product's been produced sustainably. And they haven't basically chopped down the forest in order to produce that product. They've been managing that forest in a way that it will be fit for the future. So that's a good thing to look at again if you're buying something that's made of wood. See if you can see that stamped on it. Okay, folks. Did anyone notice, Joe, did you notice the rule that walked past me a little bit earlier?
I did, but it was just at the time when the camera went a little fuzzy. We did see it though.
Okay, so I'm going to try and I'll try and find some more rules later on. Those rules are a ground-dwelling partridge bird from Malaysia. So I'll see if I can scope some out a bit for you in a little while. Now, I know it's nearly Christmas, and I know this isn't smell-o-vision, but I wish it was because this tree here smells absolutely fantastic. If I take my nail or my thumb and I gently scratch the stem here and smell that. Oh, you can't smell that. I wish you could. But this is a cinnamon tree. Okay, and cinnamon grows really well in places like Madagascar, and that's the spice for me that really reminds me of Christmas. That smells absolutely delicious. Okay, folks. Are there any questions come through in the chat there, Joe, that you want to put to us at the moment?
We can definitely take a pause for a couple questions. If you're tuning in via YouTube, you can put some questions into the chat bar. If you're in a classroom, if you want to send someone up to the camera, that'll be my signal to come and visit your classroom. And we'll take a few questions as we walk through, and then we'll continue our tour. Mrs. Fisher's class, they're nice and quick. They are ready with a question. We're ready for you.
How do you get the plants in there?
That's a fantastic question, Mrs. Fisher's class. Thank you. Well, there's kind of two answers to that question. Lots of the plants in our rainforest we have grown ourselves. So we've grown them from seedlings, either in the rainforest or at our plant nursery, which is just on the outskirts of Eden here. But some of the plants as well we've been given to by other botanical gardens around the country or around the world. They've given them to us, and then we've continued to grow them here at Eden. So lots of them in there we've grown ourselves, but we've also been gifted some too.
All right, very cool. I'm going to grab another classroom now. I think I see someone in Miss Tehan's crew. Let me bring them up.
Where do you get the animals that are living in Eden?
That's a really good question. I'm not completely sure where the animals come from, but I can tell you why we've got the animals and how we know which ones we want to have. So, the animals we have living in our biomes, they are there as what we call biocontrol. So, they're there to help keep pest populations down. So, if there are some kind of insects or bugs that might be damaging any of our plants, we bring the animals in to help control those pests. And it means we don't have to spray chemicals around the biome. So if we're having a problem with a particular type of insect or something like an aphid, we'll talk to scientists at a local university. They'll tell us the best animals to bring in, and we will somehow get hold of them. But it's a fantastic question. I've never actually asked where they come from, but that's why they're there at least.
All right, very cool.
Thank you.
Let's go to one more class, and then maybe we'll continue the tour for a little bit. And then, of course, we'll have lots of more times for some more questions.
Fantastic.
Madame Marvin's crew, let's get you in here.
How long did it take for the plants to grow?
Well, some of them in there have been growing for the last 25 years. So some of them have been growing a really long time since we first opened the Eden project. But they grow at different rates. So that giant bamboo that Robbie was showing you earlier on, that can grow really quickly. It can grow about 40 centimeters every single day, which is incredible. So some of them grow super quickly, and we have to have our team of horticulturalists, our gardeners in the biomes, coming and chopping them back regularly. But others that grow more slowly have been growing in there for about 25 years.
All right, very cool. Thanks, Madame Marvin's class.
And
Oh, you got another one there?
And how do you keep the plants from growing too fast and like going too big?
That's a great question. Yeah, because some of those plants would like to burst out the top of our biomes if they could. The honest answer is we've got a team of very, very skilled and very knowledgeable horticulturalists, so kind of gardeners, who every morning they go round, they check all the trees, they check that they're safe, and if they're growing really quickly and we're kind of trying to reach the top of the biome, they'll either go up on big cranes, big cherry pickers, or sometimes even abseil down from the ceiling and chop those plants back to make sure they don't burst out of the roof.
All right, very cool. All right, I promise we're going to come back with some more Q&A action, but let's continue exploring for a little bit.
Fantastic. So I think if you could make Robbie nice and big, I think we're going to talk about this plant next, which is an amazing plant that we have growing in our biome. This is an example of a mangrove. Now, mangroves grow on tropical coasts where the land meets the sea, and they are a super important part of the ecosystem. I will tell you why they play such an important role in the ecosystem in a minute, but first of all, we're going to talk about their adaptations, because it blows me away to think that this plant is a snorkeling plant. Just like we might go snorkeling when we go to coastal areas, this plant snorkels too. And that's because this plant grows in very muddy coastal areas, which often flood. And in order to get enough air and enough oxygen down through its root system, it sends up these special snorkels out of the mud called pneumatophores, which suck air down into the root system deep below the mud. So that's amazing. People like to snorkel, so do plants too. But this plant's important for lots of reasons. It's also a nursery ground for lots of small juvenile fish and shellfish, and those grow up to become an important part of the ocean food web. So really important to remember that this is where some of those animals start their life. But they also serve as a really important part of coastal protection. They act like a barrier between the land and the sea, and they often protect places from flooding and from erosion, from wave action. They can protect places from storms and heavy winds and tides as well. So really important coastal plant, this one. Now, sadly, globally, 50% of our mangroves are at risk of collapse. They're at risk of disappearing. And that's due to things such as deforestation, where people are coming in, chopping down the mangroves to make way for fish farms and prawn farms and to make space for more agriculture, so for more farming. And they're at risk from things like plastic pollution and climate change as well, which all sounds pretty scary. But just like we've said with the other plants that we've looked at so far, there are things we can do to help. So just like looking for that FSC logo when you were thinking about products that come from the rainforest, or looking for that fair trade logo when buying things like chocolate and coffee, we can help the mangroves by saying no to single-use plastics, because those single-use plastics often get used once, thrown away, end up in the ocean, and they often choke our mangroves. Okay, we can also look to buy sustainably sourced seafood as well, and that can play a really important role in protecting these places. Now, in the United Kingdom here, we have a logo that looks like this. It's the Marine Stewardship Council logo. And we know if we buy seafood with this image on, we know that it's been produced sustainably and it's causing less damage to our planet. Now, I don't know if this logo is in North America, but you guys could research logos where you live to see how you know that the food you're buying is sustainably sourced too. So a really important one to look out for. Okay, fantastic. Now, looks like we're heading back to Robbie, and he's going to talk to you about a very small plant that we've currently got growing in front of him, because it's only recently been replanted. But it's not only small, though. This plant is incredibly mighty. So, Robbie, over to you to tell us all about this incredible plant.
Excellent. Thanks, folks. So, yeah, this plant has just been planted in this area of our biome. And, you know, it doesn't look very special, I'll give you that. But actually, it is an amazing, life-saving plant. So this plant here is called the Madagascar periwinkle. And it actually gives us two very important medicines. One called vinblastin and another one called vincristin. But the reason that one of those chemicals, vincristin, is so important is that because it's helped improve our chances of surviving certain types of leukemia from 10 to more like 90%. So it's an incredible life-saving plant and saves thousands of people around the world every single year. And it makes me think as well, you know, we've tested less than 1% of the plants in the tropical rainforest for their medicinal value. So, you know, there's one plant that contains amazing medicines, but how many other plants are there in the tropical rainforest? And indeed, out in the environment where we live, in our hometowns and cities and villages or wherever it is, that actually contain medicines as well. And I guess the message there really is just the idea that if, you know, one way to help protect these medicine plants is by supporting organizations like WWF, for example, which act to protect the tropical rainforest. Because if we can protect the rainforest, we can protect the homes of these plants and safeguard them for the future. Now, I know that at the moment, a big film, well, maybe you guys can tell me actually, let's try that. Can you tell me, having a look at what I'm showing you on camera at the moment, can you tell me which film this reminds you of? The sequel's just come out. Any ideas there, Joe?
All right, I'm sure we're going to have an idea here. I'm just going to decide who to pick on. Maybe we will go to Lambs Elementary. What do you think this film might be from? What might it be representing? Anyone have a guess?
Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
Ooh, it's not Harry Potter. That's a good guess, though. But look, it's a small boat or a canoe.
All right, I'm going to put another class on the spot. Mr. Hancock's crew, what do you think?
It was Moana 2. We saw it on the weekend.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Moana. So the reason I'm showing you that is because actually this is part of our biome called Oceanic Islands, and we've got an exhibit which is based all around the idea of what we call canoe plants, and these are the plants that ancient Polynesians took with them as they spread out across the Pacific Ocean thousands of years ago. Okay, and they're plants, for example, like turmeric. They're plants like sweet potato and taro. Really super important. Banana, for example, super important plants. So wherever people ended up, on whatever islands, they'd always have plants with them that they knew that they needed for survival, because the Polynesians were experts at navigating the oceans and colonizing all those islands that we now like to call Polynesia. Okay. I'm going to cruise on up to a very rare plant. Tom, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of my favourites here in our rainforest, just partly because of the size of its leaves. So there we go, with Joe showing you a picture now of the massive but amazing leaves of this plant, which is called the coco de mer. Now, they're certainly some of the biggest leaves that we've got in our rainforest biome, even though lots of our plants have really big leaves because they're trying to collect as much sunlight as they possibly can. So really important for rainforest plants to have those big leaves, but coco de mer certainly has some of the biggest. And now those leaves are also corrugated, so they've got grooves going down them, and that helps to move water off of those leaves really quickly, because as you guys probably know, there's a lot of water, a lot of rainfall in a tropical rainforest. And if that water sits on those leaves for too long, they can become moldy, and it can stop them from being able to photosynthesize, which will really affect the ability of the plant to survive. So those channels help to pull the water and move it really quickly off of the leaves. Now, Robbie and I are showing you this plant because also, as he said, it's one of the most rare plants we have here at Eden. Not our most rare anymore, but it probably once was. And that's because this plant was in danger of becoming extinct at one stage. It only grows on 2 islands in the Seychelles, and luckily in our rainforest. But because of its incredible seed, this plant became endangered. And there you go, you can see a picture of the seed there on your screen. Really big, biggest seeds in the world. They can weigh up to 28 kilograms, so really heavy as well. And they were prized. People thought they were amazing, and they often took them from the wild and they had them in their houses to show off. Now, because of this, the plant became endangered. But thankfully, people also were the answer in trying to save this plant as well, because there was an initiative in the Seychelles for everyone to plant these seeds in their gardens and grow more of these plants. It was a real conservation effort involving local people. And this is a great example of what people in the tropics can do in looking after these. And remember, we can all do things as well. We can all take action for nature where we live. We can plant trees, and we can do beach cleans, and we can build hotels for insects, plant wildflowers, and all those kinds of things too. So not only a rare plant, but a great story of what people can do, again, when we work together. Oh, it looks like Robbie has found some more of our rural birds here in the biome. The darker coloured ones with the kind of red tufts on their heads, they're our male rural birds. The greener looking ones are our females. And as you can see, they're in there at the moment, pecking at the ground and eating lots of insects that also live in our biomes. They also do a great job of turning over the soil as well, and making sure things can kind of grow and flourish in our biome. So I'm glad Robbie has spotted some more of those. Okay.
All right. Well, I think that if you guys are up for it, then now would be a great time to transition to some more Q&A action.
Absolutely. That was what I was just about to ask you, Jay.
All right. Great minds think alike, Tom. Very cool. Okay. So while we're preparing for the Q&A, I'm going to bring some classes in while I also simultaneously load a Kahoot quiz. So we're going to multitask here. So this Kahoot quiz is going to load in the background, and I'm also going to ask a few questions from some classrooms. So you should see this coming up now. And while this loads, I'm going to bring Mr. Hancock's crew in to ask the first question. So here we go.
Hey, Tom, we're wondering, have there ever been any invasive plants or animals that have somehow snuck in?
Absolutely. A great question. To be honest, lots of our local wildlife here in Cornwall enjoy spending time in the biomes because they're warm. There's lots of food. There's also not many predators in there to cause them any harm. So we often find native British species in our biomes too, having a great time. So lots of birds fly in through the open vents and all sorts of things. So yeah, absolutely. But hey, who can blame them? It's a nice place to be.
I can imagine. Yeah, definitely. And I want to go watch Medicine Man again now that I've a movie I want to revisit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hancock, I know your crew is to duck out. Do you have one more, or do you have to?
That's a good question. We got animals. Oh, how tall was it? We missed the very beginning of the presentation. How high is your indoor rainforest?
Yeah, so it's about 55 meters high, so fairly tall. But some of those rainforest trees in natural environments can grow kind of up to 80 meters. So we do have to regularly prune them and make sure they don't burst out the top. But yeah, 55 meters, Mr. Hancock.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Mr. Hancock's crew, for hanging out today. I'm going to grab a couple more questions, but I didn't tell classrooms how to join the Kahoot, but judging by all the people popping in, they figured it out. If you go to kahoot.it, it's going to ask you for a PIN number, 748412. Play at your seat with a Chromebook or a tablet. Your teacher could pop this up at the front of the room. You could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're at home, scan the QR code. If you can't join with tech, it's really not a big deal. You can still play along. Mr. McGill's crew, as students are joining us, do you have a question for us? Our 6-7s joining us in Thunder Bay.
Why do coffee farmers make so little money?
Really good question. Robbie, is this one you want to take, or would you like me to do so?
Yeah, I can give it a go. It's a complicated question and a really good question, and there isn't really necessarily one perfect answer to that. Essentially, I suppose it's because a lot of the coffee, the balance of power, really. A lot of the coffee companies historically were very powerful, and the farmers were not as powerful. So it would mean that because coffee companies want to sell their coffee for as cheap as possible, what they try to do is try to buy the coffee beans off the farmers for as cheap as possible, which means that the farmers don't make a lot of money for the coffee beans that they're selling, even though they're working super hard. They're not necessarily making that much money because the price is always being driven down because the coffee companies don't want to pay too much for it. However, like Tom was trying to say, through things like fair trade, that is changing now, and we can make a big difference to that, because if we choose to buy coffee that we know has been bought from farmers and paid for properly, that means that those farmers are getting a better wage. Those farmers can then use that money to improve their standards of living and look after the environment where they live. Okay, so we're all part of that story, and we can make a big difference through thinking about what we buy. If we demand good products that are well made and well grown, and we've looked after the environment doing it, then those are the sorts of products that will be on offer to us. I hope that helps.
All right.
Great question.
Okay, let's play a quick round of Kahoot, and then we'll spend the rest of our time together today with a little Q&A action. So I know I can see students up at the cameras, and we're coming your way very shortly, I promise. All right, true or false coming your way. A nice warm-up question. Eden Project is the world's largest indoor rainforest. True or false, the Eden Project is the world's largest indoor rainforest. I think this should be a nice, easy question to warm us up before we get a little deeper into those questions. All right, good start. That is absolutely true. Home to the world's largest indoor rainforest. The amusing bee is in first place, and we have a multiple choice coming your way about how many species of plants are in that biome. Do you think it's 50? Do you think it's 500? Do you think it's about 1,000 or about 2,000? How many species of plants do you think are in that biome? About 50, 500, around 1,000, or 2,000 plants? You have a few more seconds to lock in that answer, and then we're going to find out.
Sorry.
All right, a little bit of a mix, but the correct answer is about 1,000 species of plants in the biome. Let's go to our next question. The Dandy Fox is in the lead. True or false? Coffee, it's not a very popular rainforest product. What do you think? True or false? Coffee is not a very popular rainforest product. You have a few more seconds to lock that answer in. All right, we know that is absolutely false. Coffee is probably the most popular rainforest product. It's definitely a lucrative product, billions of dollars a year from the coffee trade. The dazzled lemur has snatched that top spot. How fast can a giant bamboo grow each day? We talked about this a couple times. Was it 10 centimeters, 40 centimeters, 100 centimeters, or 140 centimeters? How fast can that giant bamboo grow each day? We also learned that you don't want to try and eat the giant bamboo. Like Robbie said, it's going to hurt your teeth. It's those sprouts that are the parts that are good to eat and maybe mix into a stir fry or something. A couple more seconds. All right, about 40 centimeters a day. That's pretty incredible. That's bigger than a ruler if you have a ruler in your classroom. Last question coming your way. Which has the largest seed in the world? Was it the coconut? Was it the coco de mer? Was it the coffee plant or the mango? We didn't talk about mangoes today, but Tom, I think you do have mangoes there at Eden.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of fruits growing here, Joe. Lots of which people are really familiar with. So yeah, lots of amazing ones: star fruits, avocados, coffee, cacao. Obviously, all the obvious ones. But yeah, absolutely.
All right. The coco de mer is the largest seed in the world. In third place, the flying lemur. In second, we've got the cute unicorn. And holding in that top spot, what do we got? The dazzled lemur holding on to those last couple of questions. All right. Let's come back from that screen here. Thank you so much for playing along, classrooms. I'll come back on camera for a little Q&A action, and let's get to it. Miss Fisher's crew, it looks like you have a question for us.
I have a lot of animals, like a lot of different animals there.
Yeah, there are a few different animals. As I said earlier, we're not a zoo, so all of our animals here are doing a purpose. But we've got some different types of birds. Those ground-dwelling rurals you saw earlier on. Also, some smaller birds that fly around up near the top. We've got geckos, we've got frogs, and all sorts of different insect life in our biomes as well.
All right, very cool. I think in some past events we've gotten lucky and we've spotted a few of those geckos too, but they're fast and they're hard to see.
Well camouflaged as well.
Yeah. Miss Behan's crew, we are ready.
Can you explain the water cycle in Eden?
As in how we water things at Eden, do you mean?
I think he's kind of wondering if the water cycle happens in Eden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It does to an extent. Now, it's not enough to keep all of our plants in our biomes alive, but there certainly is a water cycle here as well. So it's really hot and humid in our biomes, and that hot air contains lots of moisture. And as that rises to the top of our biomes, it condensates against the plastic ETFE that's up there, and it will start to rain and it will start to drip down. So there kind of is a miniature water cycle going on inside the biome all the time, but because it's not enough to keep all of our plants alive, we do obviously have sprinkler systems and things in there too. But yeah, it's kind of like a microcosm of a miniature water cycle.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, very cool. Madame Marvin's crew, who's got a question for us?
How many different like fruits and vegetables or edible stuff that can be turned into edible food? You can how many different types of plants? Like how many different fruits and vegetables are there?
So it's a really good question. Our biome, our rainforest biome here is kind of a mixture of plants for all sorts of things. So there's plants for medicines in here. There's plants that give us materials like bamboo, and there's loads of plants for food as well. I don't know exactly how many plants for food are actually in here. At the moment, I'm stood by the cacao trees, which I'll show you a cacao pod in a moment. But what I can tell you is there's lots of plants in here that people that live in and around rainforests would eat ordinarily that maybe aren't plants that you would buy in your supermarket. So lots of food that comes from lots of plants that grow in the tropics gets imported to where we live, and you could buy in your supermarket. But there's lots of plants and lots of foods that grow in rainforests around the world that people don't tend to export around the world, but they're really important to the people that live there. Like lots of types of bananas around the world. Most of the time, we really only ship what we call the Cavendish banana, but actually there's over 1,000 varieties of banana, and lots of people across the world rely on those bananas for their staple foods.
All right, very cool. South Carolina, we have not visited our crew at Lambs Elementary.
How many people visit the Eden biome each year?
Really good question. Now, I would struggle to tell you overall visitor numbers. I can tend to tell you more how many school visitors we get, because that's the bit that I'm really concerned with. So we get about 35,000 young people from schools coming to visit us every year. Eden itself, though, will be a larger number, but there are sometimes, like in the winter, like now, when actually the biggest number of people in our biomes are school children who've come here today, because the rest of Eden's quite quiet. But I couldn't tell you total visitor numbers, but school children, about 35,000 a year.
All right, awesome. I think you said you had 2 questions there in South Carolina.
Yeah. Which part of China is the Eden at? Eden at.
So the Eden project that's being built in China is in a place called Qingdao.
All right. So I think that's kind of cool too, is that, over the next little while, you might see some new Eden projects pop up in a few different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plans to, at one stage, there was plans to have them on every continent. So I don't know if that's still the goal, but it's certainly, we're looking to build Eden projects all over the place.
All right. Very cool. Thanks, Lambs Elementary. Let's go back to our Thunder Bay crew, our 6-7s. We haven't had a question from them for a while.
We just wanted to know if you guys could send a private jet for us to come have a field trip in Canada.
That's fantastic. And if we had the money, the answer would definitely be yes. But unfortunately, we can't. But it would be lovely to see you guys if ever you're in Britain. Then yeah, come and see us.
Yeah,
I've not been to Canada either. I'd like to go to Canada, so maybe we could go back on the flight returning.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, sounds good. We'll get you into the snow, Robbie.
Thank you.
All right, very cool. I'm going to take one more question before we say goodbye for today. I do see someone front and center at Mrs. Fisher's class, so I don't want to leave them without their question.
Is it hard to take care of your guys' plants?
It is a full-time job, absolutely. And luckily, it's not my job. But we have a team of very skilled, very dedicated people who spend all day, every day, caring for these plants and making sure they're as healthy as they can be. So yeah, it is a full-time job. But as I say, thankfully not mine.
All right, very cool. Well, I'm going to start off with a huge shout out to Robbie and Tom. I think Robbie might have froze on us. Technology, I think the internet was a little bit tricky today, but we got through it. We got to see the biome. Tom got to share with us some amazing facts and some photos to go along. We played our quiz game, so I think we did pretty well, even though technology tried to get us at the beginning.
It did today, didn't it, Jay?
It did, but that's okay. We always love our virtual field trips to Eden. It's such an amazing place. And what you guys are doing there, the education, talking about our important ecosystems, our tropical ecosystems, how they play a role in our everyday life, even though we may not always see it or understand it. Our rainforests are so important to the health of our planet, products we use every single day. So it really is awesome to get to spend a little time at the Eden Project and to learn about that.
Thank you. And we love being part of this and talking to different audiences in different places. So thank you as always for having us. It's been brilliant with being with you guys again today.
All right. Thank you to our classrooms who had amazing questions from YouTube, from the live chat, from the Kahoot and our camera classrooms. Actually, this is interesting. Miss Gibson's crew just asked on YouTube, are there cameras at in the biome? Like, you know how there's webcams, people can look and see polar bears in Churchill, Manitoba and stuff like that. Are there any cameras in
There are, yes. On our website, you can take a virtual tour. And as part of that virtual tour, there are some live cameras in there as well. So showing you things that are happening right now. But you can also use that virtual tour to navigate around the biome yourself. So www.edenproject.com and you'll be able to find that virtual tour.
All right, very cool. A few classrooms had to duck out for recess, but we still have a big crew backstage. So let's bring them in. If you guys want to get nice and loud so Robbie and Tom can hear you, a big goodbye and thank you.
Bye.
Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Robbie. Tom, we are going to sign off for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.